up to 2 million people, Vietnamese people murdered, right?
That's something that actually shocks me,
civilians.
is most of the people who have lived through the Vietnam fiasco, which was a fraud. And it's public knowledge that that war was just strictly a political tool. And yet, it's happening again, and people are not fighting it.
Right. I saw a bumper sticker the other day that said, Iraq, it's Arabic for Vietnam.
Oh, that's
right?
good.
And that's exactly what's
Yeah.
happening. And it reminded me of something that I read here about a U.S. diplomat and his travels in Italy, and he met Mussolini, and they were touring the countryside in a vehicle driven by Mussolini. And while he was driving with Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, he ran over and killed a young child in his vehicle and didn't even blink, like didn't look back and didn't pay any attention at all, knowing that he had killed the child. So then when he saw that the U.S. diplomat that was riding with him was shocked by this, he commented, Mussolini said, that we can never look back at these things. You know, we don't have to have concern for these things. That one life was insignificant compared to the affairs of the state. Right? And this is the attitude of the ruling establishment. So here's another reason why people might be depressed. I have my top 8 reasons. So the gangster kleptocracy rule is my reason number 1. You know, Letterman has his top 10. We have our top 8 here. So the second one I could think of is the Nazification of America, right? The rise of the police state that we're witnessing in this country, where people are being saddled with criminal cases, people are being thrown into jail for things that weren't even considered crimes in years past. You know, the misuse of the term felony, which we've spoken about many times on this show. Felony was a term that was always reserved for the most serious crimes, capital crimes. Now, swiping your MetroCard, swiping your friend in the subway with a MetroCard is a felony crime now. It's a Class E felony, and you could go to prison for 3 to 5 years for, you know, things like that. So it's the perversion of the law that we're seeing here. The police are operating as a terrorist organization in this society. They're nothing more than an army of professional perjurers, rights violators, brutalizers, murderers, as we've seen on a couple of occasions in recent weeks, as well as a political Gestapo, as we saw in the case of Jeffrey Blank, who was speaking out in Union Square Park against the war. So the police are serving as a political Gestapo, which routinely stages false mass arrests nationwide at protest activity demonstrations, and then they charge the people they falsely arrest with serious crimes.
Well, Posar is in a federal prison for
Right.
what? Trying to get a camera in a courtroom?
Right. He tried to get in, Posar, an independent journalist and a cable access TV producer, trying to get he petitioned the court, right? And that's something that I don't think was really properly addressed during his case. But he petitioned the court for the judge to allow him to tape the proceedings. And the judge did not respond to his motions to bring a camera into the courtroom. So he came to the courtroom that day in order to ask the judge in person, to petition the court in person to allow the taping of the proceedings. And at that point, he was blocked access. His access to the courtroom was blocked by court security officers. And the next thing you know, Posar is being charged with assault on a federal officer. And of course, the contract court security officers are not federal officers.
I know.
It expressly states in their contract that they're not federal officers.
Exactly.
And this was introduced at the trial, and it was
ignored.
swept aside and ignored. Right? So this is fraud. This is fraud on the court. And the judge has willfully acceded to fraud in this case. That is Judge Kaplan, in the conviction and incarceration of Posar. The judge has willfully acceded to fraud, an act for which he is actionable.
That's frightening. This is federal court judge you're talking about. So we don't have rights.
Right. So, you know, we see this reversion back to the days of the Roman Empire, where a person, the judge even admitted that the first judge that tried the case, Judge Moss, during Posar's sentence, which was vacated due to the fact that the magistrate judge did not have jurisdiction over the case, that judge said that the so-called assault was nothing more than a brush against a person that might happen 100 times on any given day on the New York City subway. Right? Recognizes that the evidence in the case does not establish a case for assault. You know, so we're reverting back to the days of the Roman Empire, where a person could be sentenced to death for so much as touching the robe of a Roman soldier. Right? So you think that's a cause of depression in the society? People see the violation, the wholesale selling of their rights by the people who are sworn, solemnly swear a solemn oath to the Constitution to protect, to support the rights enumerated in the federal, the U.S. Constitution and the Constitution of whatever state you happen to live in. Those police officers swear an oath to support those rights that are enumerated in that, and these are the people that are violating your rights.
Just as the judges are swearing under oath, but what difference does that make?
Right. Which brings us to our reason number 3, the third worldization of America. And that's what we're witnessing in today's society, the third worldization of America. Now, what do I mean by that term? Here's an example. 24% of America's children live below the poverty level. More than double that of other industrialized nations. Take Germany, France, and Italy, for example, where less than 10% of their children live below the poverty level. Right? We have since the year 2000, millions of Americans have slipped below the poverty level. This slipping below the poverty level has accelerated during the Bush administration, the administration of George W. Bush, baby Bush. But, you know, it was happening during the Clinton years as well, but maybe not so pronounced.
Well, you know, another interesting thing I read in Jerry Spence's book is that in Iceland, all children, nobody is denied a free college education. Now, there's a country that has far less tax money than this country has. Why is it they have enough money to send every child to college?
I'll go one better. Are you ready for this? In Iraq, under Saddam Hussein, anyone who was desired to get a college education and had the aptitude to pursue a degree in whatever field was their area of interest. In Iraq, before the 1991 bombing of Iraq, every person in Iraq got a free education.
That's a very interesting point. I've never heard that on corporate media.
Right. And also, every person got a monthly food basket from the government. So
Isn't
there was,
that something?
You know, Saddam was doing a couple of things that were, you know, very interesting
Righteous.
before he was removed there. So, which brings us to reason number 4, that people might be depressed. And how about this one? The shifting of the tax burden, right, from corporate business to individual wage and salary earners. That means if you were to look at the amount of federal taxes collected from average working people, common people, in the society in, let's say, the 1950s, let's say the late 1950s, early 60s, you would see that the amount collected from corporate business would, if you looked at a chart, would be up here. And the amount collected from individual wage earners, salary earners, would be down here. Now we've seen the reversal of that. We see that a family of 4 earning $40,000 in this country is paying double the average corporate tax rate. So we've seen the shifting of the tax burden from corporate business to common people. The average American family is working approximately half the year to pay all of their alleged tax obligations, right?
Well, that's how they've turned us into slaves. We are slaves for the few rich.